Hey folks, David Stewart here. Hope you guys are having a great day. I at one point lived in Las Vegas, so I just wanted to do a video on what it was like living in Las Vegas, because people who visit Las Vegas have an idea of what Las Vegas is like, and that idea is a little bit different from the people who lived and worked in Las Vegas. So if you want to know what I did when I was in Las Vegas for money, is that I taught guitar lessons and I gigged as much as I could. And so there were opportunities for both of those. However, not nearly as many opportunities as I would have liked. So I was mostly pretty broke while I lived in Las Vegas, which was a good thing in some ways and a bad thing in a whole bunch of other ways. Most obviously, when you don't have a lot of money or your money is not coming in consistently, it's really hard to do things like plan for the future or plan for emergencies or things like that. And I was lucky enough that I really had very few emergencies other than a bad ear infection that I had to have treated. That like my insurance didn't cover a lot of that, so I had to pay that out of pocket. But that was like the only thing that really came up. My insurance, by the way, back then was $60 a month for health insurance, and it covered a whole lot of stuff. Anything bad that would have cost me a lot of money, then that covered. But it wasn't going to cover like antibiotics and stuff like that. So that was the only like thing that really popped up. I moved to Las Vegas in 2011. So if I want to set this up as a timeline, I had moved back in with my parents to save money because the economy was so bad in 2008. I went from making like just huge amounts of money to nothing, right? Like gigs disappeared. I went from gigging 4 nights a week to zero. All the restaurants closed. All the bars were closed. It was the biggest economic downturn I've seen, much worse than COVID, believe it or not, at least in California. And that was because of like all the downstream effects of what happened. Everybody lost money on their house, but that turned into everybody not spending money, not going out, which turned into no money for entertainment, which that was my living. So I was kind of screwed in 2008. But, I was like, okay, I'll move back in with my parents, save some money and buy a house. My dad died very unexpectedly. He was killed on the job. I don't need to go too deep into that. There was a wrongful death lawsuit that was involved with that. And that was a very long and traumatic experience on its own. But my dad died. Paying for the funeral and adjusting to that basically wiped out the rest of my savings. All the money that I'd saved was gone dealing with that. So I stayed with my mom and took care of her for a year. And a dog that my dad had bought for my mom the week that he died, not expecting to die or anything. He just bought her a puppy, a little Shih Tzu puppy named Baxter. And he died right before my mom moved back out here to East Texas. Or actually, we're in the Houston area, so Gulf Coast. But so that was bad. And I was like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of California. I'm just like dying here. There's nothing to do. So I moved to Las Vegas. I had a friend that had, first I had one friend that moved out there that I played World of Warcraft with and had gone to high school with a former roommate of mine, a guy named Mike. I still have his guitar. It's not behind me. It's the white Strat. That's his guitar. He was a Navy SEAL, great guy. Mike Fazio was, he's still alive. I don't say he's like formerly great. He's a great guy, and I love him a lot. But he moved out there and got persuaded my brother-in-law Matt to move out there after he had like a big breakup, and basically same idea. Like economy was bad. He was working at like a Joann's Fabric or something. So we moved out to Vegas, and he did kind of the same thing I did. Anyway, I moved in with him in 2011. I remember pulling all my stuff, all the stuff I owned, everything I owned was in a U-Haul trailer that I pulled with my dad's truck that he left me. Through the snow. It was snowing in the pass between Barstow and Las Vegas, so I pulled it through the snow in like February 28th. We picked up the keys to our apartment. We couldn't get the power turned on, and it was it was literally freezing. So we had no hot water and no electricity for the first 3 days. So our goal was we wanted to go get a gym membership so we could actually shower before work on Monday, it's like kind of ended up with this weighing here, like what is harder to live without, hot water or electricity? And like for that, it was like hot water. Like when it's cold and you have only cold water, it's really hard to like bathe or shave or do any of that kind of stuff. So we showered at the gym, got a temporary gym membership, showered at the gym, and then went to work and got our power turned on back then. But everything I owned was in that trailer, and most of it was just gear. It was like amps and guitars and my computer, my desk. I had like 2 desks. I didn't even own a bed, right? I slept on a air mattress until I could buy a good mattress. And then that mattress came with a bed frame, and I was really thankful for it, so that I was a little bit further off the ground. But I slept on the floor, right? I slept on the floor in an air mattress for months and months because that's all I had. That's all I was dead broke. I didn't have money for a mattress. And even the mattress I bought was used. It wasn't like thoroughly used. It was like somebody's guest room mattress, but I was able to get it for an affordable price, and it was a good mattress. It was like a beauty rest mattress. So that was a huge blessing to be able to buy that mattress and to sleep, to like get a good night's rest. Actually, I slept really good on the air mattress. Now that I think about it, I think I slept really good on the air mattress, much better than I did on my like worn out mattress that I had before. But yeah, we moved in. Most of it was just gear, or like guns and ammo and stuff, that kind of thing. Boxes full of books and CDs. Just, I didn't really have that much other than like the tools of my craft, like my computer and my guitars and that kind of stuff. So that's what I moved in with. We didn't even have a couch. Matt had a couch. We had to borrow. We got a couch, I think, from Mike. He's like, I don't want this anymore. You can have it. So we was like, cool. We'll take that couch, and we'll have something in the living room. I had a TV that was like the guest room TV from my parents' house that I bummed. It was sitting on top of an old Hammond organ that had broken down. So we just sat it on there, and I hooked one of my old Mac up to it. We did some really basic recording in the living room there to like try to make some demo CDs and get some gigs and stuff going. I remember that pretty well because I had Pro Tools on that old Mac, and back then there wasn't as many recording options, and so I had like Pro Tools hardware, so I had the Pro Tools software, I had the Mac set up for it. That's what we had to use. We had to use a recording setup from about 2002, and this was 2011, so it was pretty outdated, but we were able to get the recording done. Now you would be like, I can't believe, we had to mic up amps and mic guitars, and we used good mics and stuff, but we didn't have nearly the crazy level of stuff that people have with DAWs now in order to do those demos, so we could initially get our gigs going. So that's how I moved there. So being broke, life in Vegas is very different than if you have a lot of money, namely because most of the entertainment and pleasure options in Vegas are going to be sealed off from you. Not all of them, but a very large deal of them. And this was a good thing, right? I didn't have any extra money to drink. I couldn't spend money on alcohol. Just didn't have the money. I couldn't spend money going out to eat very often. And I couldn't spend money gambling, right? I was never been a big gambler, but I couldn't spend money gambling. It wasn't an option. I just didn't have the money. It was impossible. All of my extra money was spent on things like gear and software or video games. Like if I could buy a video game, I'd be so happy, because money was so tight. But a video game, we just figured out like World of Warcraft is a much better investment than almost anything in terms of entertainment. For $15 a month, you can spend 100 hours playing a really fun game versus $15 is it's going to buy you like 2 beers at the bar. It's a terrible investment, like to go to the bar. So that's what we did. So the routine in my life fell into going to work. So I'd go teach guitar lessons. If I could get a gig, then I'd go play somewhere. But more often than not, especially during the week, I didn't have anything to do. I remember my roommate Matt, he got a regular gig, I think at the Venetian, like playing with a group, which was cool. But that was also really disillusioning for him because it was like, you do all this work and he made like $12 an hour and as like a union worker. It was pretty bad. Whereas like me independently, I could charge quite a bit more than that. Being a solo classical guitarist and doing those sorts of gigs, I could charge quite a bit more. And so that was useful, but I didn't have quite as many gigs as I would have preferred, right? So yeah, we'd go work, come home. What would we do? Do a gig, we'd practice. Me and Matt we wrote some screenplays later on, but we'd write some music. Then you go to the gym. You go to the gym and work out at night when no one's there. Went to the Gold's Gym on Flamingo, which was a legendary gym at that time. We'd see a lot of pro bodybuilders there. There was a great culture there. Easy to talk to people. Everybody was really friendly. They had this great lobby out in front of the gym. So like if you wanted to talk to someone, like no one talked on the floor really, unless it was like hey, let me give you some advice for how to do this. And it was great. Like that was such a good environment because there were these experienced lifters that could stop and be like, hey, you should do it like this and it's going to be better. right? And they were really friendly. They weren't jerks about it at all. They were awesome. We're like, here, let me spot you. I think you can go heavier. It was such a supportive and good gym environment. I really look back fondly on it. We had this lobby. You can go out there. There was like some gym bunny girls that were there, and you could practice your game by talking to them because they were real friendly. The girls that worked there were friendly. The guys that worked there, everybody was friendly. I remember there was this guy that worked there that he disappeared for a long time. We didn't see him until we went to another gym later, and he was like in this cast and everything. And like, what happened? He was in a motorcycle accident, and so that's why he didn't come to work. He was almost killed in a motorcycle accident. And luckily, like, the gym had a job for him to just work the counter and check people in and check out. So he was able to work when he had recovered a little bit. But I learned a lot about pain management from him because, like, he had a pain management doctor. And it's like one weekend he, like, ran out of medication. And it was like he was just in horrible pain for a day because he couldn't get more pain medication. And it's like you had to so carefully manage how much you were taking so that you could work and do stuff. But you didn't want to, the more you took, the worse it worked. So it's really hard to do it. And you have to go off one, you get off of one medication and onto another that works better. It was really interesting to talk to him about that kind of stuff. I learned a lot. But yeah, so we go to the gym, work out, go home, play video games, go to sleep, repeat. Right? If we had a gig, cool. We'd stay out and then we'd gig after that. We also would go to this restaurant, Supermex. Now it's called, like, I don't know what it's called now. I don't remember, but it was called Supermex at the time. We had a friend who was the bartender there. His name was Kelly. Awesome guy. I would love to catch up with him and see what he's doing. But he would tend the bar and he'd give us free Diet Pepsi. We'd buy a couple tacos for like $8. They were like a really, really good deal. Like $8 for both of us. It was a super good deal. So that was what we spent our little tiny extra bit of cash on, was to get those tacos Tijuana. It was like a mixture of carne asada and some sausage, I think, and it was so good. Chorizo. It was like Mexican chorizo, and it was really good. And boy, what a good flavor it was, and so good to eat after you went to the gym. And so yeah, my focus was entirely on improving my body. I was obese when I moved there. I was like around 300 pounds. I think I was 294 was the highest that I'd measured myself. Like, this has got to change. It's got to change. So made a commitment. I'm gonna learn this, and I spent a lot of time watching YouTube videos. And YouTube was kind of new in 2011, right? It was still kind of a new thing. I'd watch YouTube videos of fitness guys like Scooby, all the old guys, Twin Muscle Workout, Hodge Twins. Hodge Twins started, I think, as a fitness channel, and so they would give a lot of advice for like how to diet, how to eat, stuff like that. So figured out how to diet, figured out how to actually count calories, how to have a diet, what a good diet was, all the stuff that I never learned in school, right? I realized that the food pyramid was the diabetes pyramid, and flip that upside down and figure out how to have a good diet. So I figured that out. And over the course of about a year and some change, I lost like a huge amount of weight. I went down to eventually under 200 pounds, which is, I haven't been under 200 pounds since. I'm a really big guy. I'm like 6'2". So getting under 200 pounds, I was like really lean and I felt really good. Felt super athletic. And I looked really good. And that, of course, that peak body also delivered me like all the goods that come from having a peak body, which is everybody likes you, all the opportunities open up, you get offered jobs, and you end up, eventually I got married, right? So my wife I knew from when I was an undergraduate, but we reconnected later and, matriculated a relationship, and then eventually were able to get married. And of course, that beginning of that relationship was, I looked really good. And so that really helps things along when it's like, when you're hot, it's really easy to attract somebody and develop that mutual love when you're both really good looking. Cause my wife, oh man, she's still a knockout, but we were young and hot and we were having a great time. So got all the goods from that, got all the goods from looking good. So I really, if I had the money, I might've spent it on beer. Then I wouldn't have looked good. If I had had the money, I might have gambled it. And then maybe I'd be addicted to gambling, right? Not good. If I'd had the money, maybe I'd been going out to shows and stuff instead of going to the gym consistently every single night for months and months and months and months and months and never missing a night, no matter what. and I wouldn't look good, right? Like, so the place that I was at, where I was kind of at my peak attractiveness, was the result of just really consistent work, and it colored everything about what I did. I had known this and learned these lessons before as a guitar player, but learning them through fitness really helped me to figure out how to do anything I wanted. At the end of that, I felt like I could do or be anything. I just apply this to any other thing that I want to do. And my roommate and I had, we had this idea of being screenwriters. And so we just actually pursued that. We ended up with Hollywood contacts and stuff later on. Of course, nothing really came of that, but I became a writer because I willed myself to be one. And the willing myself to be a writer, which is something I always wanted to do, was really just knowing I just have to do this. I have to do the same thing I did as a getting in shape. I just do that for this. I just write. I just do this consistently every day. And even when we were dead tired, my roommate and I, Matt and I, who I've had on the channel, Matt Wellman, and he's another writer, though he hasn't put out a book in quite some time, I think. Even if we were dead tired and we wanted to go to sleep, it's 5 a.m, we worked on the screenplay. We wrote 2 or 3 pages on the screenplay, maybe more, to get it done. We knew, and by the time we were able to get it done, we had 3 screenplays written. We could show them to producers. It was whoa, we could get feedback and revise them. We figured it out. It was that consistent, hard work that delivered that. There's a lot of downsides to being poor, right? Which is that your options are really limited for any kind of thing that you want to do. Like, someone's like, hey, I had to be careful about going to see my mom because she would buy me gas there, right? When I got to Bakersfield, she would buy me gas, but I'd have to figure out the gas before that, right? Or things like that, which is, change it. Hey, we're going to go to Lake Havasu. It's great. I can't really afford to do that. I can't do that. And eventually we were hanging out with some friends that were quite a bit richer than us, right? And they tended to be a lot cooler about it than most other people I think would be. I don't want to name drop, but Dan Bilzerian was a friend of my roommates and a friend of Mike's, and so we hung out with him quite a bit, as well as John Dolmayan, who's the drummer for System of a Down. And John bought my dinner once, and he didn't even care, right? I was just like, man, I appreciate that. He's like, I'm rich. I'm like, well, I appreciate that too. I'm glad you're rich. You deserve it, right? They were actually really, really good natured people. And they kind of got that we're kind of broke. So, can we just go shooting? I have a lot of ammo. We can go shooting. It's yeah, let's do that. But let's go to the steakhouse first. And it's don't worry. I have comp meals. You guys don't have to pay for this crap, right? I'm going to go to the steakhouse and watch you guys eat steak. It's no, I got a comp meal for you. You're good. Don't worry about it, right? People were actually pretty gracious about the fact that we were struggling so hard and just didn't have any money, working so hard and just nothing was coming up. We just weren't getting anything for it. And that's the other thing too. People are like, oh man, you'll never get a girlfriend if you're broke. It's if you're good looking, you can be dead broke and have female attention, bro. It's looks matter so much more than money. I learned that. And the guys that we knew that were rich, it's they had no problem, but they were also good looking, right? They also spent their money on things like personal trainers and steroids to look really good. And so that helps. That's really where it's at. That's a harsh lesson for some people to think of, but it's really true. And I definitely learned that the hard way through that switch. But that was life in Vegas. It was about the grind, and it was about grinding personal things, and it was about being artistic, because that avenue of money was just kind of too amorphous. It was too hard to grasp hold of. I could get enough money to live, but it wasn't always consistent, and it certainly wasn't enough to live any kind of riotous lifestyle. So when people come to visit Vegas, they think about all the things that there are to do there. There's these shows. And so when people would come into Vegas to visit us, we do those things, but we rarely did them outside of it. The only Vegas show that I went to see was Penn and Teller, and it was a great magic show. I had a great time at Penn and Teller. They were awesome. Absolutely fantastic show. So that was the only Vegas show that I got to see. They had Phantom of the Opera. I never got to see that. My wife kind of wanted to see it, but I'm like, man, it's expensive. And my wife was broke at the time too. My wife was like, I don't know if I have enough gas to come see you. She was living in LA. I was living in Vegas. So it was a whole thing. Then eventually I was going to LA to try to gig there and things like that. It was okay. It's what it was at the time. But yeah, we didn't get to see any of the Vegas shows. We didn't get to see Elton John, who was playing. Garth Brooks was on the Strip for a while. Phantom of the Opera. There was Cirque du Soleil. I never saw any of those. Penn and Teller at the Rio was the only one that I ever saw. But there was something cool that you could do. There was a lot of actually really cheap stuff you could do in Vegas too, if you knew what you were doing. Karaoke was like free, so you could go to the karaoke bar and do that. But what was really cool is you could actually drink for really cheap at the sports book. So you'd go to like the Luxor. The Luxor had this whole sports book thing with all of these TVs with all kinds of sports on it. And you'd go and you'd put like a $10 bet on something like, okay, what's that? There's a game coming here. It's like, oh, this is a rugby game from Australia. I'm like, I'll put $10 on that team, let's see if they beat the spread. And then you'd sit down and they'd comp your drinks. They bring you, whiskey sours is what I was getting because I felt like you could mess that up. But get a whiskey sour, get some whiskey sours and sit and relax and drink. And you could smoke there. So we'd smoke our pipes and stuff. I don't have my pipe here, but I do have my wizard hat. I wish I had the wizard hat back then. So that's what we do. That was a fun thing to do. You could go out into the desert and shoot guns. Las Vegas was really weird because you'd get to the end and the city would just end, right? We had this apartment. It was on the edge of Las Vegas, and across the street there was like an airport, not the main airport, but like a private airport. And then to the left of that was just empty desert and mountains. Just like the city just ended. That was the end of the city. And if you went one block down south, you were just like, I'm just driving through the desert now towards the I-15. What is this, right? Las Vegas was weird. And once you get off the Strip, everything was this vast suburban sprawl. All the houses are the same color. They're all these earth tones with tile roofs. And they're all 2 stories, and they're all right next to each other on these little lots. Every neighborhood looked the same. Every strip mall looked the same. It was the same earthy tone strip mall. They even had these kind of handmade signs that every place had the same handmade signs. I actually used that a little bit in this book, which you can get for free if you join my mailing list, dbspress.com/list, Demon Ex Machina, where the character who actually I think is a Fresno State professor, which is something I did before I went to Las Vegas. He's in Las Vegas, and that's what it is. It's a maze. Like, you don't know. It's so easy to get lost in Vegas once you get off the Strip because everything is just the same. It's all suburban sprawl, like for miles and miles and miles until you get out to like the Nellis Air Force Base, and then things are a little different. Or you get just to the end of town, and you get to the edge of town. There's a street, there's a store, there's some houses, and there's lights on the other side, but there's nothing out there. There's nothing out there. It's just empty space. It's just the end. So you could just drive out to the desert. You could just drive out there and shoot guns, and we do that. Just drive out there. Throw buckets out, start shooting them, do whatever. I think Dan actually got in trouble once. Him and John bought a car off Craigslist, drove it out to the desert. And I wasn't there for them when they did this. And they shot it with like 50 caliber rifles until it exploded. Now, apparently this got them in trouble with someone, but I think they beat the rap. I think Dan at least beat the rap, and John never got in trouble for it. But that's what they did. They bought the car. I don't think they're friends anymore, by the way. I think they stopped being friends like years and years ago. But anyway, those are the 2 guys that I remember doing this. So I know Dan for sure did it. He like blew up his car, and like they tried to get him in trouble for it. But yeah, that was something that we could do. We could go do that. Hang out at the sports book. That was really cheap. Go to Supermex and hang out with our friends because we were friends with the bartenders there, and people come in and out. Supermex was a really cool restaurant. All of it was fun. But you had to find ways to do things that didn't require money. You could go out to the Strip at New Year's Eve. That actually doesn't require any money. You just hang out with people and have fun. Vegas can be really cheap if you are avoiding the big spending stuff, which is gambling. If you have to think about it, everything in Las Vegas is set up to be subsidized by the gambling side. They want you to gamble. Gambling has the highest margins. It's where all the money comes from. So if the drinks are cheap or free, it's because you're spending money gambling. if the if the parking is free. I found out later, like, they started charging for parking, which blew my mind. I'm like, Vegas is doing awful if they're charging for parking now. All parking was free when I lived there. You could park at any casino anywhere. There was never anywhere that charged for parking other than valet parking, and even then, half the places had free valet parking. You just had to tip the valet. Which, by the way, was a thing, like, when we went to hang out with Dan, is like his, he lived at these top of this tower in this penthouse. They had valets. So we'd drive up in this beat up Ford Focus, my roommate's Ford Focus, and be like, take care of her, You're like, oh, don't worry, I got it. Right. And you give him $5 or $10, to park the Ford Focus. So you'd have to spend $5 to go hang out with Dan, right? Do whatever. I remember watching a UFC fight with him one time. That was a lot of fun. And he had some neighbor that had, he was drinking this wine that made his teeth black, and he kept talking about how expensive the wine was. I'm like, are you sure you're not drinking Night Train, dude? You're like, your gums are black, bro. I don't know what you're drinking, but it can't be good. Some old guy with like an expensive hooker. It was pretty funny looking back at it. But anyway, the positives were I had a lot of time to work on me. I had a lot of time to fix my body. I had a lot of time to fix my spirit and stuff too, because I wasn't spending money. I wasn't living riotously. I wasn't able to consume substances that hurt me. And I got to spend a lot of time gaming, which is something that I love to do. And I got to spend a lot of time being creative. So even though I was underemployed, I used all of that free time really well. And I learned how to use it exceptionally well. And I have a lot of fond memories of Las Vegas. The people there, the shows that I went to. I would occasionally see a band if they came through. Bands would come through and you'd find it surprisingly affordable to go see them. Sometimes they were really stupid venues though. I remember we saw Foreigner, and they were at some casino off the strip. I don't remember which one. But we came in and it was like cafeteria chairs that like linked together, like the church chairs, they all linked together. And they're like, you have to sit down for this. We're like, is this a rock show? Like, where are we? It was like a multi-purpose room, like a convention center multi-purpose room. And like Foreigner comes out and play, and they're like, no, everybody's got to sit down. It's like, can I like stand? Because these people are standing, So yeah, I saw Foreigner, and it's just an awful venue to see Foreigner, but it's what it was. There with a guy whose name escapes me, but he had pseudochondroplasia, and he was a big Foreigner fan. So he had a form of dwarfism, but he was a cool guy. He got mad that we didn't want to hang out with him one time because we were working, and so then he never called my roommate again. People were like that, I met people that like they're like, you want to do something right now? I'm like, nah, it's a work night, man. We got to work. We got to practice. We got to work on some songs, and like, why do I even bother? It's like, I don't know why you bother. What did I do? It's like, I'm not being facetious, but there was a lot of mentally unbalanced people in Vegas. That was another thing about Las Vegas, is everybody was from somewhere else. Nobody was from Las Vegas. People were from Hawaii, or they were from California, or they were from, I met people from like Long Island, and I met people from Arizona, and I met people from Texas, and all these different places. Everybody was from somewhere else. And so it made me kind of come to this conclusion about Las Vegas, that like no one really is a Las Vegas person. People are in Las Vegas for reasons. It's a way station. It's like a carnival, and then they leave. So they're either a tourist for a day, or they're a tourist for 2 years. In the case I was, right? I'm there working for 2 years, and then I leave. It's like working on a cruise ship. I knew a bunch of people that worked on cruise ships there. They switched to doing cruise ship gigs. For whatever reason, they're like, I could see doing it, but I remember doing the math, and I'm like, this math doesn't really work out for doing cruise ships. Unless you want to, you do get to travel around a lot. So if that's what interests you, yeah, cruise ship's a great gig. If you're trying to pay for a family, it's not as good. And then you're away from your wife for a long time. But I knew people that did it. So I'm just saying. Yeah, everybody was from somewhere else. And because they were from somewhere else, you have to think people that leave wherever they're from have a reason to do it, and that reason may be that they are kind of messed up, and so they're not getting along with the people that are there. I met someone who, it's like, I moved away because I needed to find myself. It's like, what does that mean? Did you find yourself? It's like, I'm still finding myself, right? You're not like totally emotionally balanced. So most of the people I encountered in Las Vegas were good, but a lot of them were just like mentally unbalanced. But luckily I didn't have enough money to like do a lot of stuff with them, so it's okay. They kind of kept them at arm's distance. I met people who were like, I'm going to be a kindergarten teacher. It's like, oh, that's cool. It's like, but right now I work at the Spearmint Rhino. It's like, you're a stripper? It's like, yeah. Oh, that's cool, I guess. Are you going to be able to be a kindergarten teacher after doing that? I don't know how that works. But I met a girl who was like that. I hung out with her, and she was beautiful. But was she going to stop stripping for $1,000 a night to teach kindergarten? Eventually, would she be able to? I don't know. I don't know. I never know what happened to her. Lots of people like that. So it was an interesting time. I look back very fondly on it. It was a great time of growth. But that's what it's like. So if you're ever thinking like, should I live in Las Vegas? Well, the housing was really affordable. Like we could live really cheap. If you don't gamble and you don't drink, you can live very cheap. We go to Costco twice a month, and that would do all of our food. And that was probably $100 a person. Maybe I'm gonna be more liberal and say we spend $150 a month per person on food for me and my roommate. All right. Try to live on that now. And that was like eating like kings. We were bodybuilders eating like 250 grams of protein every single day, like good stuff, fresh veg. We were eating good for that amount of money. Luckily, we were able to do that there. And our rent was cheap. Everything was cheap. Like utilities were cheap. Electricity, everything was so cheap. I don't know how it is there now, but that's how it was. So you do get that, but the social cohesion's not there. Like everybody's weird that you meet. I could go on and on from so many weird people that I met, worked with, and did things with that were super interesting or weird. I met a guy who was into energy healing, and that was like how he made most of his money, was like waving crystals over people. Very nice guy, great guitar player, but what am I going to say about that? You meet all kinds of interesting people in Las Vegas, and so that was good too. Anyway, leave me your thoughts down below. Have you been to Las Vegas? Did you live there? Did you visit? What did you think about it? Because the tourist experience is mostly about like a haze of seeking pleasure, but the experience of living there for me was like a monk-like existence for most of it until I sort of emerged and was able to socialize with people once I had a tiny bit of money and looked really good. So anyway, leave me your thoughts down below, and I will see you all next time. Have a great, great day. Oh, before I forget, yes, patrons for December get Afterglow. You do get this. Vegas is in this. You'll get this for joining my mailing list, dvspress.com/list. Patreon, you get this. And Eternal Dream Christmas, only available through the end of January 2025. So grab this giant book. It has 10 Eternal Dream books, including The Bright Children, which has never before been released. So check that out, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great, great day.